Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Tom Greenwood. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting on Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here this evening. A hairy evening indeed for you, but I'm so grateful you were able to make it. Today we're going to talk about, with your a lot of expertise, very seasoned leader out there for more than 25 years serving the entrepreneurial community. You're going to share entrepreneurs just don't need capital or money. They need a lot more, and you're going to go in deeply into that. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background with our audience before we get going.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Christina, for having me. I'm so grateful to be given this opportunity. I think that once we get a little bit more into it, you'll see how I'm very passionate about helping new and small businesses succeed and helping entrepreneurs realize their dreams. But, I started off, oddly enough, I went to film school, which has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. And, I always tell everybody that will listen to me is that there's passions and there's reality. And, just because you can be passionate about something, and I'm incredibly passionate about the arts, incredibly passionate about, cinema and live theater and music and so on and so forth. That's a great thing to be passionate about. It's something that you could have, that you can, partake in and see from far. And I realized quite quickly as I was going to film school that it wasn't going to pay the bills. And if it was, it would be, 10 years to get to the point where it was going to pay the bills. And so I didn't like that timeline. And so just like anybody else, I went to university. Unlike anybody else, most people, I decided that wasn't for me halfway through my university career. And I left and I started working. My very first job, I was hired when I was 23 years old. Wow. And heading up a $10 million division for a manufacturing company. I was so young that, I turned 24 1 month into the job, and they called me Boy Wonder. And, I didn't really, to be honest with you, I think you hear the story from a lot of entrepreneurs or self-made, business people that, I didn't know what I was doing. I honestly didn't. It was a complete, absolute mistake for them to hire me, I thought. But I went with it and I figured it out and I got stuff done and I was very successful at it. And I had 5 corporate jobs in my career, and all of them were focused on turning around or driving success or changing the dynamic or the DNA of the company in order for them to expand into different markets and be successful into outside of their box of what they were operating in. Mm-hmm. And when I turned 40 years old, I was going through a time in my life where I really enjoyed doing that, but I didn't really enjoy all the corporate part that came with it. That there was a lot of red tape and there was a lot of people out there saying, yeah, slow down, we can do this, we can do that. And I was always the person that would talk about, I would use this analogy. I was always the kid that at Christmas time I'd rip open a present and go, this is fantastic. I'd play with it, take it apart and put it aside and go to the next thing. Yeah. I would figure it out. And then once I'm done figuring out, that's the best part for me. I'm not the corporate person that loves, lying to people and turning a 1% or 2% growth year over year for the next 20 years. And while you're in boardrooms with other people that really don't care about anything except for themselves. And so when I left corporate life, I left, really just to go out there on my own and try to be a consultant. And one of my colleagues or one of my network people that I knew at the time, when I said I was okay, I'm going to go and be a consultant, his response was, oh, so you're unemployed? I'm like, yeah.
Is that the new word for consultant? I didn't know.
Right, it really is. And unfortunately it's true, is that there's a lot of people out there that are consultants that are in transition between job A and job B, or at the end of their career and still want to go do something, so they be a consultant. But the one thing, and I'm glad he said that to me, because it really motivated me to be successful. That was one of the big things. I'm like, well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to be a paid consultant, which is different than a consultant.
It doesn't get paid. But it's interesting. You said something really key there. And I think, like you said, there might be people in between jobs that said, let me just give this consulting thing a go. But they're still coming at it from an employee kind of mindset. And it's a very different mindset as opposed to actually being a paid consultant that makes money. Share what you've learned in that area.
It is. The paid consultant for me is somebody that actually goes out there and does something. And I was different than anybody else. I come from the corporate world, so I know what consultants are all about, or I know that I know what their value proposition is. You pay us X amount of money, we come in and help you either we give you a bunch of ideas and you're there to execute them yourself, or B, we're actually there in the trenches with you executing on the ideas at the same time, but you're still spending a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I always found that model broken, and this kind of will lead into what we're talking about. I always found that model kind of broken because, I would interview consultants in my corporate life. I'm like, great, you guys are awesome. That's fantastic. I can't believe that you've written this plan on how you're going to change the dynamic of the business that we're in, and you're going to allow us to earn X more revenue or X more profit.
Mm-hmm.
So great. Why don't we just tie your fees into that? Once we start making that extra money or making that extra profit, why don't we start tying your fees into that? And every single consultant goes, that's crazy. There's no way I'm willing to do that. And so I'm like, okay.
So let's stop you there. So what does that mean? That you were kind of just saying, hey, we're going to base what we're going to pay you on what you actually are going to give us in result.
That's right.
Yeah. Why would anyone have a problem with that? Actually, that's how sales works.
Well, that's it. In the world of consulting, people do, because they have big buildings and big expense accounts, and people have to get big salaries and blah 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 blah. So they have to charge a month. And when I started, I was like, well, no, why don't I charge based on what I need to survive, to cover some of my expenses, but really the deliverables should be all based on delivery. Mm-hmm. And when I started, so that's what was the difference with me as being a paid consultant, in my opinion, and it's changed my dynamic, is I changed the conversation. The conversation was about, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. If I can go in and help you turn your company around, or I can increase the profit, then pay me these crazy fees that I'm pitching you to pay me, but it'll be a percentage of whatever I deliver for you.
I love that. I love that perspective. I've never heard, you're right. I've never heard a consultant lay it out like that, but I do recall in my 20s, I wanted an opportunity, and I had no experience in the import-export arena. So I said, hire me for a week. You don't have to pay me a dime. Let me show you I can do it.
Right.
And then if I do well, you hire me. If not, then I go on my merry way. You didn't lose a damn thing. He hired me, of course.
Yeah, of course. Well, and that's the thing too, and that's how I got very successful. My first consulting gig was for a division of Swarovski crystal, which was, that's a pretty good place to start. I remember I was flown to Austria to meet with Garen Swarovski in his office, and he's just sitting in just this super this crazy place. And in that mandate was to turn around the company within 3 years and do their division, their one ed division within 3 years. And I finished it in 20 some odd months, 28 months I think it was. And so I got everything that was, they paid out the rest of my contract. They paid out exactly what the deliverables were. And when they looked and went, oh, okay, we didn't really kind of believe that you were going to be able to do this, but you did it. And that's kind of what spurred me into the world I went into afterwards, was then private equity. So I started working for private equity afterwards. And this is, again, kind of bringing me a very long way into what I'm doing right now. But, and I don't want to advocate this, I know that you have, 3.5 million listeners per month, and I think people will freak out if I'm going to take such a hard stance one way or the other. But, a lot of private equity and venture capital companies are not so nice. Their whole goal is to go out there and to find undervalued companies, pay as little as they possibly can for them to increase their value at any cost. And the reason is because they have a lot of people that are investing these funds in order for them, and they're expecting a significant return, and they're sold on a significant return year over year. And the only way you get that is by hiring people like me, which was at the time that I would go into these companies after they were acquired, and I would be the last person that anybody wanted to see walk through the front door, because my job was to create value, and I got paid based on creating value for the equity company that I was working for. And it was an interesting time in my life, because right around the same time I started getting picked up for speeches in the United Kingdom talking about how to successfully expand into North America. And the very first speech I did, as I was still working for private equity, was in London. And at the end of the speech, there was 40 people lined up outside the hall. And all of them were new entrepreneurs or small entrepreneurs that had some great ideas and some great products or great services that were almost desperate for somebody to help them, because there were so many people that they knew that they wanted to get into North America. They knew they wanted to get into the United States, but they've been taken advantage of before by other consultants that were charging them $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 a month, promising them the world, and as soon as they got their money, they would deliver them nothing. And these people would literally mortgage their houses or mortgage their kids, all their life savings in order to hire these people that delivered no results. And that was my aha moment, and that was the time that I knew that, okay, this is what my calling is. My calling is turned into helping new and small businesses reach their goals, reach their dreams, and believe in themselves, or help them achieve their dreams, and doing it in a way where we earn our money and our fees and our profit based on them achieving their goals.
You know what this reminds me of? I had a wonderful attorney that worked with me on a difficult case I had many years ago. He said, I'll work pro bono. He was a friend of mine. He said, if I win the case, you pay me. If I don't win, you don't pay me. And it's similar to what you're talking about. It's like, it's actually purely based on results. And then you see what you've got in front of you. Now, what does that look like for, say, you're an entrepreneur and you're going to look for someone? Well, I think they should go straight to you guys. But
so
what do they look for when they're having a conversation to say, as far as, building their business, growing their business, and they've tried other things that didn't work? What is usually the problem you see when you go into most small entrepreneurs that things aren't working?
I think that what things for them aren't working in the small entrepreneurs is they think that they don't do enough due diligence in trying to get the right partnerships in or the right structure in. And this is part of the things that I do. I'm doing a keynote speech in London in November, and it's talking about the same thing. It's that when you hire a partner in your business, you should do it you should do enough due diligence on that partner, whether it's a distributor or a broker or an external consultant. Just as much due diligence as you would be hiring a new person. You do background checks, you do references, you do resume, you do validations. And most people will go, well, I hired a new distributor for my product in the United States, and they had this amazing website. I talked to the people, we did a Zoom call. They promised us that they're located in Maine, but they could easily handle all of the United States, every single market that we could possibly want to be in. This one person and his brother, they can do everything. So they were great. So we hired them. Wow. Did you do any due diligence? Did you ask any current customers? Did you ask any past customers? Did you talk to anybody else that they've ever touched in this world and see if they've been able to deliver these results? And they don't. And for me, that's the biggest part of the issue is that, we in our company, we talk about culture. We just hired one of the investment companies that we invested in last year. We just hired a VP, and I get asked this question about culture all the time. What's your culture like? And my answer is I have no idea. I'm the CEO of the company. Nobody will ever tell me. And if they did, they're probably gonna, I hope they wouldn't lie to me, because everybody says we have good culture. So I really hope they're not lying to me. But what I say, and what I said to Mike was, look, here's the deal. Here's our directory. Call anybody on the directory and ask them yourselves, because that's really the way that you're going to get the right answer. Because asking me is not, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of our culture, because I'm the CEO, and part of it's my dream and part of it's reality.
Yeah, and also it'll be your perspective. I like that you say that. I remember many years ago, one of the tips I got from a headhunter when I was working in a corporation or looking for a corporate job, is he said, ask the people you're going to interview with if you can talk to some of their employees to get a feel for the company. And you know what? You get a feel for whether you want to be there or not. One, just looking around and feeling, how does everyone look at their desk? But when you ask that question, they say, no, absolutely not, then run. Because there shouldn't be any reason why.
That's right. 100%.
Why shouldn't you be able to?
And it's the same way for getting help in your business too, because if somebody says, oh, I don't want to give you the people that we're working with or people we've worked with in the past, well, why not? You should be really proud of everybody you worked with currently, and even the people you worked with in the past, because nothing ever works out exactly the way you want it to. You're gonna have great raving fans out there for your business, and you're gonna have some detractors that thought, well, it wasn't for us. This is why I think it wasn't for us. And so I think, for all new businesses and small entrepreneurs, I think that they get really caught up into getting to their dream without realizing, getting to their dream as fast as they possibly can with the least resistance that they believe that they possibly can. And the unfortunate reality is that that's not always true. We advocate every client we bring in. You have to understand something. It's from day one. We talk about crawl, walk, run. And usually whenever a client we bring in, we actually have to take 10 steps back, because for us it's about foundation. You can't build a house without a solid foundation. You can't build a business without a solid foundation. And so we kind of take them on that journey, and And then with us, again, our model, so in our business, we have a couple of different models. We have the investment side where we actually go in and buy equity. We don't take anything. We always buy our way into companies, and we invest in the company and we provide them with a line of credit. But we also have an acceleration part of our business where, some people don't want to give up equity, and we're absolutely happy with that. So, we will give you our services and we'll help you build your business for a share of what we generate. And so for them, there's no risk for them. We're not coming in and saying, giving us $10,000 or $20,000 a month. We're like, okay, let's work on this together. And once we start driving revenue, we're going to take a percentage of that revenue, which is fine, because the business has a better opportunity to deliver that. And for them, and this is what I always say, if you're working with somebody that's not willing to put their money where their mouth is, that should be a red flag too.
It should be.
If somebody's promised you that they can deliver $1 million of revenue in the next 2 years, and they're not willing to take a piece of or a significant or all of their fees out of that revenue, then that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, I'd say big red flag. And you mentioned something very important, how a lot of businesses will want to just rush to get to the front without realizing, and they don't want that tension you mentioned. I thought that was interesting because there's businesses I've worked to grow their AR team, and when we walk in, they'll have no structure, no process. And one of the important things, as you mentioned, you got to check out your vendors. If you're going to sell, as one client I work with, really high priced items, can the people you're checking with and sitting down with, can they afford what you're selling them? And they were like, well, we don't want to set a process and scare anyone off. It's like, no, this is business. This is how people do business. They're not going to get scared off if they're substantial businesses without problems. That is,
and we all do. And look, one of the things, and I know that we're here to talk about how entrepreneurs don't only need money. One of the things we look at too, it's a two-way street. Is the reality is that if we're going to put our money where our mouth is, then we better make pretty darn sure that the person in the company that we're working with passes our litmus test as well too. And for us, it's pretty simple. It's so funny that I was having a conversation about this with somebody earlier today, that when we started investing in companies, or we look to start working with companies, we don't really care about their balance sheet or their P&L, because we know they suck. I mean, you're a small business. You're not gonna, you wouldn't be talking to us if you weren't struggling. So I mean, really, I don't want to see this. This is really kind of irrelevant. If and when we get to the point of an investment in your company, then we'll start wanting to see this on a regular basis. But it barely has any bearing into our decision, except for maybe tax liabilities. But we always talk about the suck, and the big thing for me is the suck. Is that if you're working with an entrepreneur, and that entrepreneur, as we all know as entrepreneurs, is that you go through suck. It's not all roses. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. That you go through this roller coaster on a daily, monthly basis. If you can go up and down this hill and go to the darkest of days where you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, there's negative $500 in my bank account. Payroll's tomorrow. How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And you're still doing it, and there's people still buying your product, and you're still as committed as ever to do it, then you know what the suck is, and you can handle the suck, and you embrace the suck. And for me, that's more important than anything, because and I've seen it before, the entrepreneurs that get down to this point where they're negative 500 in their bank account, they have to make payroll tomorrow. They're like, okay, I'm done. See you later. That's it. I want to go back to my nice, safe job and my medical insurance and everything else, and I don't have to worry about it. They're the ones we're not going to invest in. But those people that you have something innate, and you have that fire in your belly that you just won't quit no matter what. Those are the people we want to work with.
Boom.
And talking again about, some of these entrepreneurs wanting to get to the end game as fast as possible ties perfectly into why we don't think entrepreneurs need only money. Right now, we're teaching entrepreneurs the wrong way about certain things. And one of them is, every entrepreneur that we've talked to in the last year has always been said, hey, I'm going to pitch to this angel group, or I'm going to pitch to this incubator group, or I'm going to do this. And everybody keeps on telling me all I have to do is put a deck together, and it's got to be 20 pages long, and there's this format out there that I've got to follow. And I go and pitch to these investors, and I'm going to get all this money. And then I'm going to do what? What are you going to do with the 300,000? If you're lucky enough to get somebody to go, okay, I'm going to take a flyer on you, or a group is going to say, you know what, you've got something there, and you may have an MVP, at least something there that we're going to invest $500,000. They always want to know what you're going to spend that $500,000 on, or the $300,000, or the $1 million. And everybody's deck that we've seen all the time is like, well, I'm going to hire a CMO. I'm going to hire a CTO. I'm going to hire a CSO. I'm like, you're going to spend the $500,000 just on salaries. Then what? And how are you going to find those right people? And what are you going to do, after you do that? So my biggest issue with entrepreneurs, everybody is kind of tied into this thing right now. It's all I need is money to grow. No, it's not all you need. You actually need to know how to grow. You need to know your business. You need to have that foundation in place for your business before you start taking money, because money will help you accelerate. Money will help you get to the next level. Money is not the magic wand that's going to help your business, magically change from one to another.
Yeah, I love that you say that, Tom, because many years ago, I was getting a live series started in Manhattan. It was going to cost a pretty penny. I didn't have it. So I said to my friend, I'm going to put down the date. I'm gonna put it out there on LinkedIn, the date we're launching this thing. And my husband's like, you don't even have the money yet. I'm putting it out there. By putting the date is going to fire up my butt to move. Well, I did that. Later that day, I met a friend for coffee, and I was walking down Chambers Street with her, and I remember there used to be a place that rents spaces for events. And they just happened to move their space. They sent me an earlier email that day that I just got in my inbox, kind of ignored it, but noticed it on my phone and said, hey, they're in the same area. Let's just go up and talk to them. I don't have any money on me, but whatever. So I went to talk to them, and they said, we remember you used to come here all the time 10 years ago, come here once a week and do some event with us. We love you. Yeah, sure. You got an event coming up? We'll spot you. You can pay us after the event. Boom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it's just that, you don't always need the money, but you need to have the plan. You need the plan.
And I think that, one of the people that we've talked to recently about it, she has this, great idea about this, new social service. Incredibly smart human being, like, way too smart for any of us normal people. And, it was a whole thing. And her whole thing was about raising, $1 million. She had an idea. She had a pretty fancy deck. She had, financial projections out for the next 10 years, like everything that every capital funding company, incubator, private equity, venture capital person wants to see. But she hasn't done anything to approve it. She hasn't built any product. She hasn't done anything else. But her whole idea was to take that $1 million and hire, 5 people in order to help her get to get the product out there. But my argument with her was, you blow that $1 million within 6 months, and then what? You've got these people that you have to pay their salaries. They're giving up their life to come on board to help you, and all of a sudden, they're all in when you pay them. And you're like, hey, here's my vision. This is what we do. I'm going to pay you $170,000 a year as a CMO or as a CTO. And then all of a sudden, the money dries up, and they're sitting there going, "Oh yeah, well, sorry, I need a paycheck. Not you." And so that, I think that's what the biggest thing that we see, and we want to start changing people's minds and focuses on, is that you've got to stop focusing on money. You've got to focus on somebody that's truly there to help you build the foundation of your business. And this is part of why we're in the business that we do, is that we work for equity companies still as an embryo builder. So we get these businesses that are great businesses that have great ideas that they're not ready to invest in right now, that we can take on. We can bring them down to get them to the point in 2 or 3 years that they are ready to invest in, and then we give them back to them.
Yeah,
because they're not willing to take that risk that we are, and put our money where our mouth is to build this business and get it to a point of where they are actually viable, and they do look attractive to venture capitalists or angel investors. And I think that if more businesses realize that you need somebody to come in and help get you over those embryo and infant stages in order for you to get to that point where you can go to a capital table, you're going to be more valuable at that point than you ever will be right now. You go in today and you're begging for money when you don't even have a product going, you're going to get screwed over on valuation. If you do things right in the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to have a product, you're going to have a team, you're going to bootstrap everything. You'll be a better entrepreneur and leader because you've had to feel the suck and live through the suck of those 3 years of doing this. And you're going to be able to go to that cap table and go, no, we are who we are. And you're going to get a better valuation. So people aren't going to take advantage of it. And that's what this horrible circle of death, as I call it, is right now, is that these young entrepreneurs, they're so focused on, I'm going to go and get money right now, and I'm going to raise $1 million in seed or angel investment right now. And then what? You're going to mortgage 50% or 70% of the value of the company, or 40% of the value of the company for nothing. And then all of a sudden you're going, when you really need money to actually grow, you don't have anything more to give because you've already given it away to these first initial investors.
Well, this has been such insightful wisdom you've given our audience, and I really hope anyone who is beginning to think about launching a business, who maybe hasn't or who has, and who are just in the situation you're talking about, who, let me just go out there and get some money, thinks twice, gives you a call. How can they do that? How can they work with you guys?
Yeah, it's really easy. Go to evolvebusinessadvisory.com on our website or on our social. You can DM anybody on our social. And again, I hope so too, and that there are a lot of people out there that are really truly passionate. One of the things we talk about all the time is that we're a passionate group of individuals brought together in a common goal to help make the dreams come true of entrepreneurs. And I think that if you're really looking for somebody to help you and believe in you as a person and believe in your vision like you do, and really want to get this done as much as you do, because we're all now, we say to our clients or our partners is that we're all intimately involved in this, because if they're not making money, we're not making money. And so we're all really going down the same path, and we're all on the same page, and we're all trying to get things done. And yeah, so they can reach us at evolvebusinessadvisory.com. There's a contact us link there. They can email info@evolvebusinessadvisory.com or even a DM on Instagram.
That's awesome. Well, Tom, I just have to thank you again for coming to Savvy Broadcasting and sharing your great wisdom.
I really enjoyed this, Christina. You're absolutely spectacular.
Thank you.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.